Thanks, John. You know, it is true that I wrote in my business school application that my dream job was to be the owner of a baseball team. And I think there's probably two reasons for that. Number one, that's the year I was living across the street from Wrigley Field, so it was always on my mind. And number two, I would have said anything in that essay to get the admissions committee to not look at my undergraduate transcript. Everybody laughed at that except my dad, who paid for college. But it's great to be here tonight at the Economic Club. When John asked us to speak tonight, we thought about all the different things we're doing and which things would be the best to discuss. At first, I thought perhaps a discussion of how my family is committed to preserving a treasured baseball cathedral and the third largest tourist attraction in this state, despite receiving no public funds and paying the highest taxes in all of baseball. But then I thought maybe that is a better speech for the Un-Economic Club of Chicago. Or I thought I could talk about all the new friends I have made during the process, from politicians to rooftop owners to litigious neighbors and so on and so on. But knowing how that discussion would have an effect on me, I thought a better platform for that would not be the Economic Club, but maybe a tumbler of Canadian Club, Pastor. For those of you that live a cleaner life than I do, that's a whiskey. So eliminating those options, I thought we would talk a little bit about where the Cubs were, where the Cubs are, and where the Cubs are going, and why Cubs fans should all see a bright future for our organization. First and foremost, it is the goal of the Chicago Cubs to be the best team in baseball and the best organization in all of professional sports. But as with any other business, it really comes down to strategy and execution. And while we have a large, very detailed strategic plan at the office, it all boils down to this. We are building a rock-solid foundation by making smart, long-term decisions and investing our resources in the future of our team. When we bought the team, our facilities, from top to bottom, were among, if not the very worst in baseball. While we have built new offices to make our operations more efficient, what we are most proud of is the largest and best Dominican Trading Academy, and opening soon the best spring training facility in baseball. However, our facility with the greatest need is, of course, Wrigley Field itself. As everyone knows, I assume everyone reads a paper from time to time, we are getting closer to initiating and executing a plan that will preserve and improve our treasured ballpark. The field will be restored to the beauty of its peak in the mid-30s and will give Wrigley to the next generation of fans. The renovation will greatly improve the day-of-game experience for all fans with more points of sale, better corporate suites, and my personal favorite, 40% more bathrooms. All that's great news, but in the end, we know one thing. The Ricketts family ownership will be defined by just one metric. Did we win the World Series? On the baseball side, going into our first season of 2010, it was a lot like buying a house the day after there was a giant party inside. Walked in, food on the floor, beer cans all over the place, a guy that nobody knows sleeping on the couch. And indeed, the teams from 2007 and 2008 were great parties, and we were all there. But by opening day 2010, we had the oldest lineup in baseball, one of the highest payrolls with some very long-term, very off-market contracts, and no real prospect of near-term improvements for the team. We did not buy the party, we bought the hangover.
Win a World Series. Hasn't happened since 1908. No pressure. Best organization in pro sports. No pressure. I hear ya. Yep, here we go. Ready? It's great to be here with you tonight, and we thank you for the invitation to this prestigious forum. But a quick look at the two rosters of the teams participating in the World Series, and you can start to see why they're model franchises. Of the 50 players participating, 36 of the 50 are either homegrown players, and by that I mean players who were drafted or originally signed with the respective organization, or players who were directly acquired in a trade for homegrown talent. So 36 of the 50 players participating were homegrown players. And that, in the modern game, and in fact, really for a long time in baseball, many decades, that is the definition of a healthy organization. A core of pre-prime and prime age homegrown players, tremendous organizational depth, and a lack of over-reliance on veteran free agents. So why this emphasis on young players? Why are young players not only preferred, but really essential in the modern game and really throughout baseball history? Well, young players have a lot going for them. Young players tend to improve while older players decline. Young players tend to stay healthy while older players get hurt. Young players can thrive in a new landscape of PED enforcement, and thank God for that, while some older players have older habits. Young players can be groomed to support an organizational ethos and demonstrate loyalty. Older players can be a little bit hardened by the game and be mercenaries and can occasionally be more loyal to themselves. But the real reason for the emphasis on young players should really resonate with this particular audience, and it's simple. So when you combine those two things, when you have expensive free agent contracts for aging players, you end up paying more for each win than you should. This is the Cubs, again, in the thick blue line, plotted against every other team in the NL Central for how much they've paid per win for each of the last 10 years. You can see the Cubs have paid the most per win in the NL Central, culminating there in 2011, almost $2 million really reached per win. Its nadir in 2011, where you see about 6 veterans accounting for $50 million in negative value. Actually, Tom, I think on this slide you might find one of the guys who was on your couch when you bought the draft. It's really hard, and it's really fickle, and it can be arbitrary in parts. But if you miss on first-round picks and you miss in the draft, it then leads you to a place where you have no choice but to pursue free agents. And then when you pursue free agents, no matter how good your scouting eye is, you're still dealing with that irreversible decline on the bell curve. And it's just a tough area to be in. So it's a vicious cycle. You need to perform in the draft, or you're almost doomed to die by the free agent sword. If you do it right, it's a little bit of luck and planning and great scouting and embracing technology and embracing stats and working your tail off. But if you do it right and you just hit on your first round pick, let alone all the other rounds, you can really turn a franchise around in a period of 2 or 3 or 4 drafts. So we hope that the results we've done the same are that we traded 4 years of 8 different veteran players, average age 32 and a half. And the yield was 78 years of 14 different young players, average age 23. So it's exactly the type of thing that one needs to do when building a foundation for sustained success. So now we're 2 years into this process of going into full-on talent acquisition mode through scouting, through player development, through trades. So 2 years after having a bottom third farm system, we were just recently ranked the second best farm system in the game. We were evaluated as having 4 of the top 30 prospects in all of baseball. Again, that's a mid-season review. I think after the fall league, it was just reported that, at least by one industry-accepted standard, we're going to have close to three of close to the top, perhaps the top 10 prospects in all the game. 3 of the top 10 prospects. And because of this, it's very important, essential really, that we establish an environment at the major league level where young players can learn, develop, and thrive. And to be candid with you, that was really the impetus for our managerial change. We felt like we were lacking in that area. So it'll be incumbent on the new manager to establish that type of environment, which is difficult to achieve in the big leagues, where young players can come up, can feel supported, can be themselves, can break in, can struggle, can fight back, can establish themselves and become major leaguers, and then good major leaguers, and then winning players, and then parts of a championship club at Wrigley Someone Field. Told me when I first joined the Cubs and first took this job that it takes great courage to be patient. And I think this applies primarily to our fans, who have been incredibly supportive throughout this process and for many, many decades, century, beforehand. So during any building process, there are moments of great hope and there are moments of great frustration. For our fans who are here in Chicago primarily, they see the big league team play 162 times a year. They see more moments of frustration than they get to see moments of hope. And so I wish that some of our fans would get a chance to travel with me as I go out through our minor league system and get to see a few more moments of hope.
I'm looking at it from the investment perspective. As an investor, do you have buyer's remorse?
Absolutely not. From an investment perspective, obviously, I think baseball teams hold their value, and there's a lot of press about teams going up in value. But ultimately, it's really not about that. It's about, for us, it was about having a family business again. And my father started a company that was a family business for a while. Then it grew just too big to be a manageable family business. So it's really like a family gathering point for us. I think that's number one. Number two, it's amazing to be in a chair where you think that what you do impacts so many people. And for all these years, all the people in this room and around the world who have been Cub fans, if they've given so much love to this team for so long, when we deliver that World Series, that's going to be the greatest thing on the planet. And that's really more why we got into it. It's not just about investment.
So if we don't see a winning team in a few years, how should Cubs fans look at that?
Well, let me tell you a story. Some of you may have heard this story because I think
we're telling all evening.
Yeah, right. We're telling. So I got in a cab a couple years ago, right outside of my office downtown here, and I got in. The cab driver said, "Oh, look at this! I'm listening to the Cubs on the radio, and Mr. Ricketts gets in my cab. What are the odds of this?" I'm like, "Wow, dude, long odds. You're right. That's pretty unlikely." He said, "I am from Russia. I am watching what you're doing. Do not win too soon. This is like reading a great novel, and I want to read every chapter." And that's a true story. And I said, "Brother, no one's ever said that to me before, or since, John." But no, the fact is, you can expect from us improvement, and you can expect a young core building and a foundation developing that everyone should be excited about coming to Wrigley.
Tom, you talked a bit about renovation at Wrigley. What you're doing there. When you kind of finish the renovation, what will fans most enjoy about the new experience, aside from ultimately a winning team?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of things we can improve. I mean, no matter who you are in the park, you're going to get a better experience. We're really going to significantly enhance the entire upper deck experience with a lot more food options and a lot more services. The corporate suites, we're going to redo them. They'll be about 40% larger. So if you're entertaining a group of people, that'll be a better option. We're going to have more for families in the plaza next door. We're going to program that so there's more to do when you bring your kids. So pretty much we're looking at each kind of layer of people that come to the park and try to give them something. And that includes the players who poor guys have to live in pretty tough third world kind of conditions down there. So I think everyone will have a better experience. And the beauty of it is you'll be able to sit in the chair that you always sat in and look out at the field and know it's Wrigley. You'll just, when you get up and you go to the concourse, it'll be clean and open and lines will be shorter. So everyone will really
do win a
enjoy it.
World Series. What will you do the day afterwards?
Recover?
Yeah, I think I'll be the one on Tom's couch, I think, at that point.